So I first want to just welcome everybody to today's webinar presentation hosted by the IEEE Standards Association. My name is David Stankiewicz. I'm the event producer for today's webinar on the topic of Policy for Artificial Intelligence, a Global Perspective. Today's session is the second part in a three-part series of events on governing the rise of AI, and we are looking to hold our third and final webinar sometime next month in November. So we'll go ahead and get started. I will kick things over to our moderator, John C. Havens. John, take it away.
Awesome. David, thanks so much, and especially thanks to you and Brett and everyone else at IEEE for helping us get this set up. Really excited to have everyone on the call for our second presentation. We have an amazing group of speakers today. Just to give you a quick sense of the agenda, we're going to go for 1 hour. We started at noon Eastern. We'll end at 1 o'clock Eastern, so 60 minutes. After I do this little opening, the speakers are going to do just quick 1-minute introductions to who they are. And then we're actually going to have full presentations from each of our guests. They're each going to have about 8 minutes each to present. Once Nico, who is our last speaker, finishes his presentation, then we're actually going to go to questions. I have prepared a few questions for speakers. But as David mentioned, we actually would love to have any participant or attendee questions. So me, I'm your moderator. I'm Executive Director of a program at IEEE called the IEEE Global Initiative on Ethics of Autonomous and Intelligent Systems. I'm also an author, and I'm honored to be the moderator here today. Now, each of our speakers in the order they're listed, if you can just give us a quick 1 minute or so introduction to yourselves, and we'll start with Konstantinos. Konstantinos, can you please give us a quick introduction? For some reason, I'm not hearing you. Maybe it's just me. Arisa, can you hear me? And do you mind providing a quick introduction to yourself?
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Arisa Ema. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Tokyo and visiting researcher at the RIKEN Center for Advanced Intelligence Project. Awesome.
Well, domo arigato, Arisa, for calling in from Tokyo. Really appreciate, and it's going to be really exciting to have a non-Western viewpoint from all the great work I know you're doing at Tokyo since I saw this a couple of weeks ago. So thank you so much. Nico, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Nicolas Miailhe. I'm one of the co-founders and presidents of the Future Society at Harvard Kennedy School of Governments. I'm also a senior visiting fellow in the program on science, technology, and society at HKS, and also a member of the IEEE Global Initiative on the ethics of autonomous and intelligent systems.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And also thank you to you and Cyrus, who really were the inspiration for getting this whole series going. Really appreciate all your efforts. Cool. So I'm going to chat just for a minute while Konstantinos calls back in. I'll explain a few. Both Arisa and Nico have mentioned they're members of the IEEE Global Initiative, which I have the pleasure of being the executive director for, and since we're in a quick pause mode, I'll do a quick pitch, but it's all free, what I'm going to talk about. December 5th, we actually have the second version of our paper, the paper created by members like Arisa and Nico. It's called Ethically Aligned Design, and I'm very excited. It features 13 sections which reflect the opinions, I should say the expert and informed opinions of the 13 committees that created it. It's the 8 original sections and committees that were part of Ethically Aligned Design version 1, and we've added 5 new committees. It's geared for academics, engineers, policymakers, corporate folks. It's, as far as we know, the longest or most comprehensive global and also crowdsourced document of its kind that focuses on the ethics of autonomous and intelligent systems And when I say crowdsourced, I mean that both version 1 and version 2 were released as what we call requests for inputs. And what that means is when version 2 comes out December 5th, we would not only welcome, we encourage, and would love your feedback about either version 1 or version 2. And what we're going to do is as we move to the final version of the paper in 2019, we're going to take the feedback from version 1 and version 2 to incorporate into the final version that we put together. Good news, Konstantinos, it looks like you are back with us. Konstantinos, are you there?
I hope so.
Well, you sound perfectly clear, so I think the answer is yes.
Okay, so let me first greet everybody and to say I'm sorry for for having disappeared for a short while. And I would like to perhaps start my short presentation. So this is about the AI landscape in IEEE. And this is probably the last time you see and hear the term AI from me. We are not using this in IEEE because there are reasons for this. And we prefer to talk about intelligent systems or robots or whatever to make things more concrete. And of course, in IEEE, there is a place where best people in the world come and present the findings, the research, and so on. We have some very famous conferences, which is flagship in this field, like the Intelligent Robots and Systems, the IROS, or the International Conference on Robotics and Automation, and many societies and so on, dealing with the technologies that make that many people understand as AI. So, in addition to the technology aspect, IEEE has been engaging also in the ethics since long time. And ethics, with respect to engineering, has several dimensions. The first is the code of ethics, which is more the intentions, how we should ideally behave. And then there's a professional ethics, how to make this happen in reality, how to avoid plagiarism and to have very good peer reviews and so on. And then, of course, this is the ethics of implementation of technology by itself, which is a very different thing altogether. And this is relatively new. And, what we're doing here is part of these three components, which I would call technology ethics. So, one component of technology ethics is a big program we launched almost 2 years ago now around, let's say, the ethical aspects of autonomous and intelligent systems. And we do a bottom-up approach, which is very, let's say, sui generis to IEEE. It is individuals, everybody can join, we ask no permission, no passport, and it is free. And this is very inclusive and open. And from the very beginning, we had two ambitions. One was to create a kind of framework, and this is the ethically aligned design, where we explain the issues in a very concise but complete manner. And then at the same time, we suggest some high-level recommendations or high-level principles, how to address them. And this is taking very nice shape now. We're very close to release version 2, and John has spoken about this. I don't want to repeat it. And this is an amazing work where hundreds of people are involved. In parallel, we go further, which is let's make more concrete recommendations to engineers or to policymakers, and this is our standards. And again, IEEE standards are not mandatory. We're not a governmental organization. Our standards are voluntary and bottom-up, but many of our standards are used all around the world because they're simply good and people use them, like the Wi-Fi. And here you see at the right side of the slide a list of the projects we started precisely around the field of ethics and intelligent autonomous systems. A lot of it is around data. I will come back to this a bit later. Now, since it is let's say a seminar or a webinar around policy options, I would like to concentrate to focus on three top political challenges. Not the challenges so much only for us engineering societies or scientific, but also for policymakers. Well, I think the policymakers are under stress because the evolution of technology and the pace of development of technology leaves them behind. They cannot cope anymore. They cannot even understand what are the matters. And this is not only their problem, it's also our problem, because we don't make a serious effort to communicate in a language that people understand what we're doing. And this is a threat to democracy, to put it very simply. This decoupling of the two trajectories, the trajectory of the political process and of the technology development process. And we have to make a very serious effort that does not totally derail. The second is, again, quite political. This is that what happens with our data and how we're defined as entities out there in the networks. We have no control about it, and we have no idea what people know about us and who knows about us and how they use it. So, and this goes beyond the manipulation where we get advertising that we may not like and so on. It goes very much to the political process, because if your private life is merged with your public life, you cannot be a political actor anymore. And this is, again, a deadly threat to democracy. It is not just about advertising here. And the third is what do the technologies serve? What purpose? If we take Buckminster Fuller, he said in the 70s that with the technology level we have reached, we can fulfill all basic needs of humanity. We don't need to go on war anymore about this. And but still it is happening. So why are we failing? What are these technologies servicing? What are the purpose? And and do they really help create a more fair and just humanity? So, and related to these challenges are the opportunities. So for us, so we have to start both bottom up and top down. That means we, the techno-scientific communities, we do our best to create recommendations, both for policymakers and for us, that make sense. And the policymakers should encourage this process. And also, if something is then useful, they should take it and use it and make it so integrate in the legislation, procurement, and so on. We have to create alternative markets for better products, which take into account our values and respect our privacy and so on. And this cannot happen if the two communities, the policymakers and the developers, do not coordinate, do not collaborate. And we're doing this. This is not theory. This does not look bad. There is a lot of appetite out there for this approach. Second is regarding the data. There are already technologies out there that could help us reclaim part of the lost territory. It is not in the interest of many companies and also of several governments to use them, but we should do it. And it is the ambition of IEEE to really to create frameworks which are practical and which enable people really to link themselves to the networks in a way that preserves our agency and our identity the way we wanted to define it. And of course, always in a legal framework. And finally, instead of focusing only on a mechanistic growth, let's say, mentality, which we don't know why we're doing this, we should really make a heart and think, okay, in which direction we want to grow. And the triple bottom line, it is the 3P. It is we have to make profit for a company to survive, but we have not to destroy the planet. There cannot be that our planet is regarded as an externality. We have to internalize the natural resources. And of course, it is also about our private well-being, our personal not private, our personal well-being. So all these three things should be there for any system to say it serves humanity. And here, if there are any policymakers on the phone, and we have been having this dialogue now intensively in several capitals also in Europe with policymakers, and I will be also in the OECD conference after tomorrow to engage with the delegates of OECD and so on. So what the policymakers should do, first of all, they should stop accepting everything that comes from the technical community just because it has a computer in the loop. they should really apply the same rules that apply for every other usual process also there. And enough is enough, they should say. They should also understand social and ethical implications of technology, and we can have a dialogue there. And they must help us also, and if I say us, it is the techno-scientific communities, to understand the political implications of what we do. We cannot always say we're just innocent, we're just making technology and the rest is problems created by others. I don't buy this. I don't know who else buys it, but I don't. Secondly, about the data problem and identity, amazingly, there are some bodies that try to do something. The GDPR is an interesting initiative. The question is why not national governments come up with something similar? And I would really encourage the national governments also to engage there and take this as a good example. And finally, about the economic growth and so on, we should, the policymakers should support both national and multilateral efforts to prioritize these triple bottom line indicators of prosperity. What we do at IEEE, we're engaging at all three levels. One is at the cognitive level, we try to understand what we're talking about. And this is the ethical aligned design, which is now version 2, which is significantly better than version 1. I have the feeling, not only in terms of extending the matter, but also in going deeper and making it more precise. Secondly, the series of standards we do and how we try through these standards to reclaim a part of our lost agency. This is not just interoperability standards, they are quite interesting. And finally, our engagement with policymakers and also with our peers and so on in discussing beyond GDP tech policy, what should technology really help to achieve. And I leave it here, and I will be happy to answer any questions at the end.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Konstantinos. Really appreciate your presentation, and also obviously very glad you were able to call in. And Arisa, if you're ready, I would love to have you present on the status of AI policy and ethics in Japan. Arisa, take it away, and thanks.
Thanks, John, for your moderating this webinar. Hello, everyone. I'm Arisa, and today I would like to introduce 3 activities, each from the government, academia, and networks in Japan. So the thing is, the discussions on artificial intelligence and ethics are carried out within and between various academic, government, and network in Japan. So today, I would like to introduce some activities discussing AI policy and ethics. There are organizations that lead the discussion on AI ethics, while many other communities remain active. So most reports I will introduce today can be read in English. So if the listeners want to search for further information, you are welcome to visit the relevant websites and read the original documents. So firstly, I would like to introduce the draft of AI Research and Development Guidelines for International Discussions, published by the Conference Toward AI Network Society, Institute for Information and Communication Policy, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, MIC, Japan. So it consists of 33 participants, and the members of the conference and subcommittees are from academia, industry, and civil society. The draft of guidelines aims to protect the interests of users and deter the spread of risks, thus realizing a human-centered wisdom network society by way of increasing the benefits and mitigating the risks of AI systems through the sound progress of AI networks. As you can see, the first principle is the principle of collaboration. It concerns the development of AI networking and promotion of the benefit of AI systems. Principles 2 to 7 mainly deal with the mitigation of risks associated with AI systems, such as the principle of transparency, principle of controllability, and principle of privacy. Principle 8 and 9 emphasizes improvement in acceptance by users. It also deals with the AI usage guidelines as well. So the MIC, the Ministry of Internal Communications, supports the conference organized by the OECD Committee on Digital Economy Policy entitled AI Intelligent Machines, Smart Policies that will be held on tomorrow, not tomorrow, the 26th and the 27th October 2017 in Paris. Second, I would like to introduce the Ethics Committee of the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence, JSI. The committee consists of 9 members and 3 observers, most of which are AI researchers. But the groups also includes a science fiction writer, STS researcher, that is me, and a journalist. Since its establishment in 2014, the Ethics Committee of the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence has been exploring the relationships between artificial intelligence, research technology, and society. In February 2017, it released the Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence Ethical Guidelines, now that you're seeing in the display, that is prioritizing contribution to humanity, Article 1, as its most important objectives. The guidelines were firstly created as a code of ethics, and as such include professional ethical guidelines such as act with integrity, which is in Article 6, and communication with society and self-development, Article 8. And above all, Article 9, the avoidance of ethics guidelines by AI, emphasizes the reflexive nature of the guidelines and reflects its unique characteristics. You can see that it said that AI must abide by the policies described above in the same manner as the members of JSI, a Japanese Society for Artificial Intelligence, in order to become a member or a quasi-member of the society. So the guidelines are not intended to come into practice immediately, but are meant to promote various questions to deepen discussions between researchers and society, and to formulate conversation that would lead to the efficient use of artificially intelligent technology in society. So the Ethics Committee held an open discussion in June 2017, inviting Danit Gal, chair of the Outreach Committee at the IEEE Global Initiative for Ethical Considerations in Artificial Intelligence and Autonomous Systems, to participate in the discussion. And also a video message from John G. Havens, who is the moderator of this webinar, and the executive director of IEEE Global Initiative, introducing Ethically Aligned Design Version 1. And we also invited Richard Maurer, the director of AI project at the Future of Life Institute, and he introduced the Asiloma AI principle. And also the committee confirmed its intention to hold future collaboration with the IEEE and the Future of Life Institute. Also, the JSI now collaborates with AI initiatives organized by the Future Society, which Nico will be introducing soon after my presentation. And we are kind of encouraging Japanese people to join the initiatives. And also, as a third, I would like to introduce a 2-day symposium on AI and society organized by the Next Generation Artificial Intelligence Research Center of the University of Tokyo, which took place in Tokyo this October, just 2 weeks ago. So John were also in Tokyo at that time. And also, as you can see in the slides, the IEEE Global Initiative is listed as a partner. The symposium invited speakers from industry and academia to exchange ideas about the practical applications of AI technologies and possible future developments. It aimed to create an opportunity to hold an international discourse on social impacts arising from new AI technologies within Japanese industry and academia. On October 12th, the event Beneficial AI Tokyo was held to discuss effective ways to build a cooperation for beneficial AI. So that's the brief introduction of what's going on in Japanese AI policy and ethics, and I would welcome questions from listeners. Thank you, and John.
Awesome. Well, Arisa, thank you so much, and it was such a pleasure seeing you again in Tokyo a couple of weeks ago, and just amazed at all you do. My joke with Arisa is that she has 7 copies of herself as robots, because there's no way that one person could do all that she does. But you do it beautifully, and really, really appreciate the presentation and getting a perspective from Japan. So domo arigato. But now I'm very pleased to introduce Nico, and Nico, we'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, John. So in a nutshell, our mission at the Future Society is to be a think tank, and we specialize on questions of impact and governance of emerging technologies. Back in 2015, we started this AI initiative to focus our effort on the revolution of artificial intelligence, and basically to help decision makers capture the upsides and minimize the downsides of this revolution. So what we do is policy research, so very applied policy research, convenings, executive education, and we have started to look into incubating startups which are confronted with severe ethical challenges. So as part of our work and in partnership with the IEEE and with many other partners from around the globe, including JSI and Arisa, we started last month a global civic debate on the governance and impact of artificial intelligence. This effort is led over a period of 7 months up until the end of March 31st, and is open to everyone. And it relies on a series of events and workshops organized around the world and carried on a collective intelligence platform, which I will demonstrate a bit later. But I want you to picture in your mind a curated online forum manned by a team of professionals and a methodology on collective intelligence. And this platform allows people to participate in French, in English, in Japanese, in Chinese, and soon in Russian, and we're hoping to add more languages. So it's truly a multilingual effort, because we really want to be carrying conversation on the governance of AI in a way that transcends civilizational and national boundaries, because most of these questions, when we scratch the technical surface, boil down to values. And it's very important for us to seek to confront and align value systems across civilizations. We have a pretty ambitious goal of garnering up to 20,000 contributions coming from 2,000 contributors, and we're on the way to do that. So the way it's organized and the way the consultation is split is in 4 phases, and we're about to complete phase number 1 and shift to phase number 2. Phase number 1 was basically aimed at harnessing the community into discovering what is this notion of artificial intelligence and how it's contested, because it is heavily contested, and that's one point that Konstantinos alluded to. And it's maybe time to move past that notion of artificial intelligence, which does not allow us to embrace the complexity of what's going on. But besides trying to understand the notion of AI, what we really try to help the community mobilize around is trying to understand how the dynamics of this revolution are playing out, what are some of its most pressing consequences, and how these consequences needs to be governed to maximize benefits, minimize risks, and ensure that those benefits reach everyone. In phase 2, we're going to move from a survey-based interface into a more interactive-based interface. And the way the platform operates is basically around a discussion thread. So it's like a forum, and we want people to be able to throw up ideas back and forth, discuss, contest, and basically debate. As we move forward into phase 3 and phase 4, we are going to seek a form of convergence, and the goal is to forge common grounds at the global level, at least transnational level, around some of the questions revolving around governance of artificial intelligence. So let me give you some of the insights that we have garnered so far from our platform. The first one is quite obvious, is that AI is by definition a contested notion. And it appears to us as a collective imaginary. Basically, we use it to project our hopes and our fears. That's a social technical imaginary. And as a result, The boundary, for example, between artificial general intelligence and artificial narrow intelligence is somehow misleading because it relates to something that we do not understand now in detail, which is human intelligence. And as a result, if we are leaving this AGI-ANI boundary as the key boundary that structures the debate around the dynamics of the rise of AI, we run the risk of leaving huge blind spots on all sides. And therefore, we advocate for a deconstruction of that boundary and a reconstruction of that boundary on more solid grounds in a way that maps the surroundings of what we frame as general and narrow in a better way. The second main insight that we have garnered is the fact that there are no common grounds globally on the dynamics of the rise of AIs, its velocity and its magnitude, and neither on how we should approach anticipatory regulation. The community of computer scientists and the communities of experts and the wider public are bitterly divided around the appreciation of what is this velocity and magnitude of the rise of AI. We have also detected that the explainability challenge, which is that we need to be able to break into these black boxes that deep neural network represents, and our ability to break into those black boxes is going to represent a key challenge that needs to be addressed if we want to accelerate the dissemination of autonomous systems. Another tension that we have detected that cuts through civilizational boundaries is the tension between, on the one hand, access to services, so access to justice, access to credit, access to personalized medicine, access to insurance, and on the other hand, questions of control, privacy, and dignity. And those tensions between what an Indian farmer deep down Bihar would demand in terms of lowering down his or her price of access to credit and a French citizen who doesn't want to part with his right to privacy, these tensions are getting magnified by market dynamics. And we know that the global markets and associated dynamics are shifting. Their center of gravity shifting towards the east, towards Asia and emerging economies. So expect the question of financial inclusions, in the case of India or Africa, to generate additional tension on the question of access versus control. And that reinforces the need to seek to confront and harmonize value systems at the global level to operationalize the ethics of AI. From a policy perspective, additional insights point to the fact that AI is clearly perceived as a main source of power and sovereignty in the digital age. That's the case from private actors, but that's also the case from public actors and the military. So AI is and has to be considered as a strategic asset. And if AI, as it is defined now as these black boxes which allow a massive algorithmic correlation, mining big data, if this is what we have to confront in terms of challenge, then it results in a number of things. The first thing is that we might be seeing the weakening, if not the collapse, of the boundary between personal data and other types of data. And that's a big thing. The second is that we might be witnessing the weakening, if not the collapsing, of the boundary between experimentation and deployment. Why? Because the way we develop deep neural network is to mine and use data at scale. We need huge data sets. The way you develop an image, a computer vision application requires millions of images. So that boundary in terms of regulation between experimentation, which traditionally has offered a lot of leeway to researchers, and deployment, which has been way more regulated, is weakened. And that may cause the shift of the regulation away from a focus on data into a focus on algorithm. And we might see the rise of demands from regulatory agency to get investigative powers and certification power over the way algorithms operate. And the first major move in that direction has been caused by the European GDPR, which is the main legal framework, which will be enforced across the EU, which is a big market, from 2018. And the GDPR, and especially its Article 22, which mandates the right to explanation, which remains from a techno-scientific point of view a challenge, This push now to consider in tandem the challenges of explainability and the challenges of privacy. It's not only that we need to ensure from a market perspective that customers and have trust into the products, into the black boxes, we also need to be able to address the demands from the citizens in terms of how justice is rendered vis-a-vis how some decisions are made. And that, in a way, that cocktail brews into the need to invent what we call regulatory sandboxes, which are safe space where we can test how these boundaries between personal data and other data and the boundary between experimentation and deployment can be tested so that we can try and balance out the benefits and the risks of artificial intelligence systems. And that's it for me. And maybe in the Q&A, I'll use one of your questions to try and demo a bit the platform.
Awesome. Well, Nico, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have time for the demo. So what we'll do is while we are speaking and taking questions, and we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes to have you all answer questions. We'll leave these 3 links up. So anyone who's a participant, I'm not sure if these are clickable. If they're not clickable, hopefully you can cut and paste them and learn more about the work that Konstantinos, Arisa, and Nico described. Okay, I'm going to go back to the beginning. We've gotten a lot of great questions. And if it doesn't have a specific name for a person who's being asked, I'll make it a general question. But we have a question for Arisa. And Arisa and everyone, if you can make your answers fairly quick, that way we can try to get to all our questions. But Arisa, the first question is for you about your presentation. The person asked, is there a tension between Principle 1 of collaboration and Principle 3 of controllability that you talked about in your presentation? So again, is there a tension between those 2 principles, collaboration and controllability? Arisa, what do you think?
So thanks for questioning, and although I just listed the headlines, but you could see that there's a link to the English version, so like www.somu.go.jp /main_content with the numbers.pdf. And if you go to the website, you could read all the English translated version of the draft. And if you go to page 7 or something, you could see that the principle of collaboration is a thing that says that the developer should pay attention to the interconnectivity and the interoperability of AI system. So it's more like about how the AI systems are collaborating. And also in the controllability, it says about developers should pay attention to the controllability of AI systems. So I don't think there are tensions between those 2. But the thing is that the number 1 principle, the principle of collaboration, is mainly concerning the sound development of AI networking and the promotion of the benefits of AI systems. So please read through all the draft, and maybe you could find your answer there.
All right, quick question, or if you can reply fairly quickly, hopefully, Arisa, this is pretty simple. We had a question from Pramas, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correct, who said, is there any timeline to introduce these guidelines into practices, as in regulation being adopted by industries or as policy? So Arisa, quick question back to you again.
Okay, so as far as I know, there is no timeline for having this kind of guidelines put this into practice. However, right now, like the MIC and many other the ministry are creating this kind of guidelines. So maybe it wouldn't be more like the regulation thing, but maybe more for like kind of like the just the guidelines. So I wouldn't see there gonna be a regulation about this within Japan. But however, they are having some kind of conference and they are saying this to the OECD or something like that. So it's more like the guidelines rather than the regulation for the industries.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Arisa. Ben had a great comment. Ben said, I imagine that if I insisted on having controllability over human collaboration partners, that wouldn't go over very well. Ben, that's, I'm sure, very true and a great point. Let's see, I'm going to move on. Dean Rogers and a few people asked about the IEEE P7000 working groups. Dean said, is there interaction with the P7006 group? And Dean, that is focused on creating an algorithmic or AI personal data agent. Anyone can email me after the webinar for questions about any of the specific working groups, and I can also connect you with the chairs if you want to join. And thanks very much for that, Dean. Okay, moving on. So Pramath, and again, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And let's see, I'll give this question to either Konstantinos or Nico, who said, all things in place, how do you fight the corporations, or I should say deal with the corporations and industries who may want data at any cost to drive their companies? And Konstantinos, I'll start with you because you touched on some of these issues with regards to data and businesses. So the question is, how do you deal with data issues and companies, and how do you regulate them, or what's the best way to partner with them to kind of move things forward with regards to data issues? And Konstantinos, that's for you.
Thank you. And this is not the easiest question. I would say, first of all, it is not our intention to fight against anybody. Our intention is to find people and companies and governments and so on who understand what we are saying and to work with them. And our ambition is to create alternative systems and products and an alternative market in reality, where people understand that these products and systems, that they give them something, but without taking them their identity. And these systems may be a little more expensive, or they may ask for something else, but this must be transparent. So, all in all, our ambition is, and this is the standards may, because these systems can be visible that they do this, and they need some kind of certification. This is why standards are important, because you can certify against the standard, you can be visible in the marketplace, and people can choose to use this system over the other because it has some features that they would like to see. And little by little, also others may join. So it is creating really an option for us consumers and citizens.
Wonderful. Thank you, Konstantinos. And again, really appreciate all the speakers in the sense that these are great questions and tough to answer quickly, but really appreciate you doing that. So Nico, I'm going to give you the next question. It's an excellent one. And again, forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Nicolas Miailhe, Yasu, if I'm messing up your name there. It's a long question, so I'll read the whole thing, Nico, and then if you can answer it fairly quickly, because we're wrapping down on time. But Nicolas asked, how will AI and intelligent systems change and potentially disrupt the current state of international relations? For example, if cheap robots become cheaper than cheap labor, as the fourth industrial revolution is promising, how might U.S.-China relations be modified, given that they were partially based on reciprocal benefits? Also, what do you think will be the main issues of techno geopolitics given the growth of AI and intelligent systems in the next years? Okay, Nico, you have 3 minutes. Go.
Well, that's a great question that would require an entire conversation on that, but let me summarize the answers in the following. One of the key issues posed by the rise of AI is the drive to concentrate power and wealth in the hands of a few actors, public and privates. These causes destabilization in the form of rising inequalities, with the companies such as Facebook, which are accumulating power over how designs in societies are unfolded, which are accumulating power in terms of how advertisements are traded around the web, for example. And that also generates instabilities because there is an arms race I mean, let's just face it. We might frame it the way we want, but there is already an arms race going on in the way the military are looking at harnessing the power of autonomous systems to gain dominance and domination and superiority over others. So inequalities and arms race are two of the manifestation of what we need to address and avoid if we want to reap the benefit, maximize the benefits and minimize the risks of the rise of AI.
Awesome. Well, you definitely get a prize for answering succinctly and with great aplomb. So thank you for that, Nico. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to take the last question, but I did want to say thank you to Joshua Stern, Dean Rogers. What we'll do is we'll reply to everyone separately after the call. But I did want to answer one quick thing that's easy to answer from Roya. Roya said to the IEEE folks on the phone, what are your plans in working with less wealthier countries and addressing their social and economic issues in your report? And Roya, it's a great question. A couple quick things. We're very excited that the second version, Ethically Aligned Design version 2, that launches December 5th, actually features an entire section called Classical Ethics and Artificial Intelligence that deals with, now this is it's a two-part answer. One is non-Western ethical issues. So for instance, that committee talks a lot about Shinto ethics and Ubuntu ethics. And I bring that up because outside of the wealthy versus non-wealthy issue, it's critically important to have non-Western, at least for us it was, to have non-Western thoughts and ideas in version 2. So we're really excited about that group, chaired by the amazing Jared Belebli, people from Thailand, from South Africa. It's an amazing array of experts in that committee. We're also excited, people like Arisa. Now, obviously Japan is not in the non-wealthy category, but we really made an effort with version 2 to expand beyond North America and Europe. And we have people, amazing people like Arisa. We have people from China, South Korea. And now in terms of, to your question, we also have new members from Brazil. We have a few people from the Russian Federation and from Mexico. And especially with version 2 moving forward, we're hoping to get a lot more concentration of thoughts from the Global South and also expand our efforts into Africa. This version, we really went from, tried to go at least from west to east, as it were, to get more, Eastern perspectives, forgive me. But that said, Roya and anyone else, really excited to get your feedback for version 2 so we can make the final version of Ethically Aligned Design as inclusive and diverse as we can. So I know, again, I'm so sorry to everyone that we don't have time to take more questions. If you posted a question, we really appreciate your time and efforts. Last look at these links to remember. The first one is from Konstantinos, and this is also where you can find out information about the IEEE P7000 standards that were mentioned. The second is from the Civic Debate, and the third is also, both of those are related to Nico. If you have any more questions about something that has not been answered, do please feel free to email me directly. My email is here, john.havens.us@IEEE.org. I'll do my best to get the answers that I can, and we'll follow up with answers to questions that we didn't get the chance to answer here. So with that, I want to give a huge thank you to Konstantinos, Arisa, and Nico. Really appreciate your time in preparing and presenting the materials. And David and Brett, want to thank you for your time. And David, I'll throw back to you to wrap us up. And thank you for me, John Havens.
Thanks, John. And again, thank you to the speakers, Arisa, Nico, Konstantinos. That's it. I'll take us out and wish everybody a great rest of the day. Thank you so much.